Welcome. This is video 16 of the Assessing Risk of Significant Harm training course for child protection practitioners. This course looks specifically at the use of the Stage 2 risk assessment or Risk 2 format to assess risk of significant harm. Video 16 provides an explanation of how to complete Section 8 of the Stage 2 risk assessment. Decision and reason for decision. Section 8 records your overall decision about risk of significant harm. The record of decision is straightforward. This is recorded as yes, no, or not sure. In addition, Section 8 has a section to record the reason for your decision. It also provides a record of any specialist assessment tools used to support your risk assessment. Throughout this course, we have emphasized that the question of the significance of harm is an important judgment in child protection. We have clarified how this is presented in law and its interpretation in case law. As a professional judgment, it is made on the balance of probability rather than being a scientific or definite answer which is either right or wrong. The purpose of the risk assessment is to get to a decision at a point in time. Such a decision is made on the balance of probability. It is based on what is known at that time and is defendable. The decision section includes 3 possible answers. These are yes, no, and not sure. The yes and no answers are clear. They indicate that you have sufficient information to reach a decision. This will of course be made on the balance of probability, but also made proportionately. In child protection, a decision has to be made to protect children. It is not always appropriate or safe to defer making a decision in order to gather more and more information, or to be able to become ever more certain. So a yes is, yes, I have enough evidence to make a decision, given I will never know everything and a decision is required. In contrast, the not sure indicates that you don't have enough information to make a decision. However, it is not an option to put off making a decision forever. And if deferring such an important decision, it has to be safe enough for the child to wait for more information to be gathered. And in deferring, you should be clear what information specifically do you need to gather in order to reach a decision, and also how you will gather this information. For example, are there specific tools that will assist, or other people you need to consult? The Stage 2 risk assessment is a progressive assessment. All relevant areas are explored and a decision is reached in relation to each of those elements. This includes the parent's capacity to meet needs and the degree to which the child's needs are met. You'll remember these were scored between 1 and 4. You placed the scores in a matrix which indicated the level of harm. You then categorized the harm and predicted whether it was going to increase, decrease, or stay the same. Then you confirmed in Section 7 whether the harm was significant. So by this point, you should be clear what your answer will be in Section 8. Hopefully, you'll be able to make a decision, a yes or a no. Please record your decision by selecting the relevant tick box. Section 8 is mainly associated in people's minds and experience with a reason for decision summary. The reason for decision is recorded in a large text box in the Risk 2 form. As such, it is unstructured and you can choose to complete this in any way you prefer to do so. However, there is a structured method for completing this section which practitioners find helpful. The reason for decision has been called the magic paragraph or the clever paragraph by practitioners over the years. It is structured in a specific way following a formula. At the end, you will have a well-structured paragraph that can be used in Section 8, but also copied into other documents as a short summary risk assessment. For example, this magic paragraph or short summary risk assessment is used in some local authorities as the analysis section of the social work report to child protection case conference. At the beginning of this section of the form, there is a short guidance section to remind you how to fill in the summary. It does not advise you to fill this in an unstructured way in your own style, but prompts you to follow the formula. It states, "This section is an analysis of your risk assessment. It clarifies the reason for your decision. It is constructed by drawing the statements from the different sections of this assessment into a single statement. It integrates sections 1.1, 2.1, 3, 4, 5.2, and 7 into an analysis summary. For additional guidance about writing the reason for decision analysis, please see Appendix 1 in Risk Assessment Stage 2 Guidance." The formula takes the summary statements from the key sections in Risk 2 and usually adds a short qualifying statement. From sections 1.1 and 2.1, we take the elements that contribute to the level of harm, its categorization from section 4, and future likelihood from section 5.2. From section 7, it is the main question of significance, and that tends to include the most qualifying information. To illustrate this, we look at the case example. You may recall this example from video 10, where we looked at parental capacity to meet the child's needs and protect them from harm. This statement is comprised of two elements. Firstly, the highlighted statement is prefaced with, "I consider that," then the text which corresponds to box 4 in section 1.1. The description from box 4 is incorporated into the statement. In original form, the box reads, "Parent, carer, does not have the capacity to meet the child's needs or protect from harm." In the statement, this is slightly individualized from the child to him or her. It reads, "I consider that the parent does not have the capacity to meet this child's needs or protect him from harm." The professional opinion statement from section 1.1 is then qualified with the evidence, findings, or rationale. There are usually 1 or 2 sentences bringing the key findings to the reader's attention. In the example, the needs are unmet as the mother is incapable when using heroin to supervise the child and has made no contingency arrangements for another safe adult to look after him. It reads as, "There has been continuous serious substance misuse over 2 years, and the mother is incapable, being under the influence of heroin during periods of the day when the child requires supervision, and no one else is available to supervise the child." If we look at the remaining section of the reason for decision summary for the case example, the same pattern is seen in the second section, namely 2.1. You'll see the statement from the professional opinion summary box 4. It states, "Most of the child's needs remain unmet and the critical need is unmet, it then qualifies the statement with a rationale stating the child's need for general supervision and stimulation is unmet. The critical need that is unmet relates to ensuring the child's safety in the home and protecting them from exposed sharps. Sections 3, 4 and 5.2 are more directly quoted from the sections in RIS 2. The strong indication of harm comes from Section 3, where the intersection of the scores from 4 and 4 gives a red indicator colour. This corresponds to a strong indication of harm. The harm is defined using the categories from Section 31(9) of the Children Act 1989. There is impairment rather than ill treatment. Prediction from 5.2 is again short. These three sections read as, I consider that there is a strong indication of harm. This harm is an impairment of physical and emotional development and an impairment of physical health. I predict the harmful effects are likely to increase as the child becomes more mobile. Section 7 is longer and includes more evidence. The first element, highlighted in the slide, reads as, I consider that this harm is significant. This is effectively your overall decision about significant harm. The remaining sentences qualify the decision. It refers to difficulties in sustaining change or working effectively with other agencies, inconsistent use of the drug disposal unit given to her directly to reduce risks to her toddler, and failure to ensure that there are safe adults to supervise the child. These statements from parental capacity in 1.1 to issues of significance in Section 7 are combined together to create a short summary risk assessment. Throughout this course, you have been asked to consider the case example and then to apply the principles to your own case. This has included developing short statements in relation to each element. In videos 10 and 11 for sections 1.1 and 2.1, you started to build your own reason for decision. Therefore, as we introduce the exercise in this presentation, it will be very familiar to you and its components already drafted. You may, of course, decide to review or improve your original sentences. Section 8 also includes a section to record any tools used as part of the risk assessment. This provides a record of any specialist tools that have been used as part of this risk assessment. There are several specialist tools available, including tools to assess capacity to change and neglect. Many of these are incorporated into the risk model, but there are other ones, of course, used in various agencies or favoured by some professions. This can also be a working prompt for practitioners as they complete the risk assessment. For example, if you are not sure and require further information, rather than bring the assessment to an end and determine not sure as a decision, you could address these issues directly as part of the assessment. This would avoid delay. In the guidance on this part of the RIS 2 form, there is reference to a list of tools developed as part of the risk model. Exercise 11. Reason for decision. Exercise 11 provides you with an opportunity to use Section 8 of the risk assessment. From the Downloads page on the Practice Resource module, you'll find a workbook to accompany this course. This exercise is in the workbook with instructions and the questions from Section 8 for you to complete. You can pause the video in order to fill in your workbook. When referring to any cases in your workbook, please do this anonymously, for example by using initials. Please consider the case example from your own practice. In your own workbook, please complete section 8.1, which records your decision as yes, no, or not sure. You can pause the video in order to fill in your workbook. Please consider the case example from your own practice. In your workbook, please complete section 8.2, which records your reason for decision. In your workbook, there is an example of the completed reason for decision for the case example with reference to the source sections. In your workbook, you will have already completed reason for decision statements for videos 10 to 15. Therefore, most of these statements will have been prepared by you already. Please review these that you have already developed. Based on these, and in keeping with a case example in your workbook, please complete the reason for decision summary. You can pause the video in order to fill in your workbook. Please consider the case example from your own practice. In your workbook, please look at the handout which provides a small sample from the list of available tools from the risk model. In the workbook, please identify and record any tools that may assist you in your risk assessment. Do not identify more than 3 tools in this exercise. Please explain why these tools may be useful to you and how they would assist your overall analysis. Try to imagine which specific section of your risk assessment a particular tool may be helpful. For example, to identify parental capacity to change. This relates to section 1.1 and 5.2. Or to predict likelihood, it refers to section 5.2. Or to indicate severity of effects of neglect on a child, that relates to section 7. You can pause the video in order to fill in your workbook. What did you find most challenging about creating the reason for decision? What kind of other situations, assessments or documents can you imagine using the reason for decision summary? When you checked what you'd written in the previous exercises, did you need to modify and improve these? If so, what did you do? You can record your observations in your workbook. Once you have worked through video 16 of the Assessing Risk of Significant Harm course, please progress to the next part, which is video 17. Section 9 focuses on follow-up actions and section 10 on the comments of the team manager.